The fence around the conservation center had a hole in it that Danny Foster knew about, but never told his parents. He squeezed through it now with Biscuit waddling behind him, both of them covered in red dust from the African plains. His mom would be angry about the dirt, but she would be angrier about him taking Biscuit outside the compound again. Danny was 11 years old and had lived at the research station his whole life. His parents studied wildlife behavior, which meant Danny grew up surrounded by animals most kids only saw in books. Biscuit was different, though. The honey badger had been orphaned when poachers killed his mother 2 years ago. Danny's mom brought the tiny cub home, planning to raise him for release. That never happened. Biscuit imprinted on Danny like a puppy would, following him everywhere and sleeping at the foot of his bed. "Come on, we need to get back before lunch," Danny said, brushing dirt off his shorts. Biscuit made a huffing sound and scratched at a termite mound. The honey badger was the size of a small dog, with a white stripe running from his head to his tail. Most people thought he looked cute. Danny's mom always said that was the problem with honey badgers. They looked harmless until they were ripping through a beehive or fighting off a leopard. The sky darkened without warning. Danny looked up and his stomach dropped. A massive shadow covered the entire research station, blocking out the sun completely. The shape above them was wrong, too smooth and too large to be a cloud. Metal gleamed along its edges. "What is that?" Danny whispered. The air crackled with energy that made his skin tingle. Biscuit pressed against his leg, unusually quiet. Then the screaming started from inside the compound. Danny ran toward the fence hole, but blue light erupted across the station grounds. His dad stumbled out of the main building and collapsed, his body rigid. More beams of light swept across the area, dropping people where they stood. Danny grabbed Biscuit and dove behind a water tank. His heart hammered against his ribs. Through the gap between the tank and the wall, he watched creatures descend from the ship above. They walked on 2 legs but looked nothing like humans. Gray scales covered their bodies and their heads were angular with 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern. They wore armor that shimmered like oil on water. The creatures moved through the compound systematically, picking up unconscious humans and carrying them toward beams of light that pulled them upward into the ship. One of the aliens pointed at the animal enclosures and spoke in clicking sounds. 2 others headed that direction. Danny knew he should run into the bush and hide. He knew Biscuit could survive out there. But the animal enclosures held 3 leopard cubs his mom was rehabilitating, 2 baby elephants, and 6 local children who had come for the education program that morning. He could see them through the fence, frozen behind the building where they must have hidden. "Stay here," Danny whispered to Biscuit, but the honey badger followed him anyway as he crept along the wall toward the children. The aliens were distracted, stunning adult researchers and hauling them away. Danny reached the group of kids and grabbed the youngest, a 5-year-old named Peter. "Run to the bush," Danny hissed at the others. "Hide in the caves by the river." They stared at him with terrified eyes. One of the aliens turned and its 4 eyes locked onto their position. It raised a weapon that looked like a twisted piece of black glass. "Run!" Danny shoved Peter toward the fence and the other children scattered. The alien fired. Blue light washed over Danny and his muscles locked up. He hit the ground hard, unable to move anything except his eyes. Biscuit snarled and charged at the alien, but another beam caught the honey badger mid-leap. Biscuit went down 3 feet from Danny's face, his dark eyes blinking but his body motionless. The alien who shot them approached and made more clicking sounds. Another joined it and they both looked down at Danny and Biscuit. One of them picked up Danny like he weighed nothing, slinging him over its shoulder. The other grabbed Biscuit by the scruff of the neck, holding the honey badger at arm's length and chittering to its companion. They seemed to think this was funny. The light beam pulled them up into the ship, and Danny's last view of Earth was the red dust and the hole in the fence growing smaller below him. Inside the vessel, everything was cold metal and strange lighting that hurt his eyes. The aliens tossed him into a room with other humans, all of them starting to regain movement. Danny's fingers twitched first, then his arms. By the time feeling returned to his legs, he was stumbling to the clear wall that separated their holding area from the corridor outside. "Biscuit!" he shouted, pressing his hands against the barrier. An older woman pulled him back gently. "Quiet, child. They might hurt you." "My badger, they took my badger. I need to find him." "There's nothing we can do right now," the woman said, her voice kind but firm. She had an accent Danny didn't recognize. "We need to stay calm and figure out where we are." But Danny counted 32 humans in the cell, including his parents who were just waking up, and none of them were Biscuit. The aliens had taken his friend somewhere else on this ship, and Danny had no idea if he would ever see him again. 3 meals had come through a slot in the wall since the aliens took them. Danny guessed that meant 3 days, but time felt weird on the ship. The lighting never changed, and there were no windows to show if it was day or night. His parents had tried to keep him close, but Danny spent most of his time pressed against the clear barrier, watching the corridor for any sign of Biscuit. The other humans had started talking more, sharing information. The woman who spoke to Danny first was named Priya. She was 16 and had been taken from Mumbai while walking home from school. A man named Robert used to build bridges in Canada. Yuki taught kindergarten in Tokyo. They had all been grabbed by the same aliens from different parts of Earth, all within the last week. They're called Krolath, Priya said quietly, crouching beside Danny at the barrier. I've been listening when they walk by. I'm good with languages, and some of their sounds are similar to clicks in a Xhosa. What do they want with us? Danny asked. I think they sell people, like the old slave traders, but in space. Priya's face was hard. I heard them say market and station Helix several times. A Krolath guard walked past their cell, its scaled feet making scraping sounds on the metal floor. Danny noticed the creature carried no visible weapons, but there were devices on its belt that probably served the same purpose. The guard's 4 eyes swept over the humans dismissively before it continued down the corridor. I need to find Biscuit, Danny said. He's not in here, so they must have put him somewhere else. What's a biscuit? Priya asked. Danny explained about honey badgers, about how Biscuit was raised from a cub, about how the animal followed him everywhere back home. Priya listened but looked doubtful. Danny, I know he's your pet, but what can he do? He's small, right? The aliens stunned him just like they stunned us. You don't understand. Biscuit isn't like a dog or cat. My mom showed me videos of honey badgers in the wild. They fight lions. They eat poisonous snakes and don't die. They break through fences and dig under walls and never give up when they want something. But he's tame, Priya said gently. He grew up with you. That's different from wild ones. Danny shook his head. His mom had explained this to him many times. Biscuit acted friendly because he trusted Danny, not because being raised by humans had changed what he was underneath. A honey badger was a honey badger, whether it slept in your bed or hunted in the African bush. Robert joined them at the barrier. He had been studying the cell's design for hours, running his hands along the walls and examining the slot where food appeared. The lock mechanism is electronic, but there's a manual override built into the frame, Robert said quietly. I can't reach it from inside, but if there's a power fluctuation, it might disengage for a few seconds. How does that help us? Yuki asked, moving closer to listen. If we could get out, we could look for weapons or a way to send a signal to Earth, or maybe even access their navigation system and figure out where we are. Or I could find Biscuit, Danny said. The adults exchanged glances. Danny knew what they were thinking. They wanted to comfort the kid who missed his pet. They didn't understand that Biscuit was more than comfort. Biscuit was dangerous even if he didn't look it. 2 more Krolath guards passed by, and this time Danny heard them making clicking sounds to each other. One gestured toward a door down the corridor, and both of them seemed to be laughing. Danny pressed his ear against the barrier, trying to hear more. The small Earth predator just sits there, Priya translated quietly. She had been listening too. The guard says it's docile, barely moves. They were expecting it to be more aggressive based on its teeth and claws. Danny's blood ran cold. That's bad. What do you mean? If he's calm, they won't hurt him? No, you don't get it. When Biscuit goes really still and quiet, that's when he's most dangerous. My mom called it conservation mode. He's not being calm. He's planning. Priya looked at Danny like he might be in shock, but she didn't argue. Robert had moved back to examining the cell door, his engineer's mind working through possibilities. Yuki was comforting some of the younger children who had been captured. Danny's parents were sleeping, exhausted from fear and stress. The ship rumbled slightly and the lighting flickered. Robert lunged at the door, pressing his palm against the lock mechanism. Nothing happened. He slumped back, disappointed. I need more time to understand the timing, Robert said, but I think I can do it. That night, if it was night, Danny lay on the cold floor and thought about Biscuit sitting quietly in whatever cage the Krolath had put him in. He remembered when Biscuit was just a cub, how the little badger would wrestle with Danny's hand and make chirping sounds. But he also remembered the time a stray dog got into the compound and went after the baby elephants. Biscuit had gone from playful to violent in 1 second, driving the much larger dog away with pure ferocity. The Kroloth thought they had captured a harmless pet. They saw Biscuit sitting calmly and assumed he was domesticated and safe. Danny knew better. His mom had told him that honey badgers in the wild would memorize the patterns of predators and wait for the perfect moment to attack or escape. They were patient hunters. Biscuit wasn't being docile. He was learning everything about his captors, storing every detail, waiting for his moment. And when that moment came, the Kroloth were going to learn why Earth animals had a reputation for being unkillable. The plan came together slowly over the next day. Robert worked on memorizing the timing of the power fluctuations that ran through the ship. They happened every 6 hours like clockwork, probably part of some maintenance cycle. Yuki kept track of guard patrols, counting seconds between each pass. Priya listened to every word the Kroloth spoke near their cell, building a mental map of the ship's layout from their conversations. Danny contributed what he knew about Biscuit. The adults listened politely at first, probably humoring him, but he kept talking until they understood this wasn't about rescuing a pet. This was about unleashing something the aliens had no idea how to handle. The exotic animal hold is on the same level as us. 3 sections forward, Priya explained, scratching a rough map on the floor with a piece of metal she had pried from the food slot. They keep the valuable specimens there. I heard guards talking about some creature from a water world that cost them 2 crew members to capture. They seem proud of their collection. What about weapons? Robert asked. If we get out, we'll need something to defend ourselves. The guards don't carry handheld weapons that I've seen, Yuki said. Everything is built into their armor or belts. But there might be something in a storage area. Danny studied Priya's map. If we free Biscuit first, we won't need weapons. The aliens will be too busy dealing with him to chase us. The adults exchanged those looks again, the ones that said they were humoring the kid. But Priya had been paying attention to Danny's descriptions. Explain again what happened with the leopard, she said. Danny told the story he had witnessed 2 months ago. A young male leopard, newly independent from its mother, had tried to establish territory that included the conservation center. It killed one of the goats and came back for more. Danny's dad wanted to relocate the leopard peacefully, but it returned before they could set up the traps. It cornered Danny near the water pump. Biscuit had been sleeping in a sunny spot nearby. The honey badger woke up, saw the leopard threatening Danny, and attacked. The leopard was 5 times Biscuit's size, but the badger went for its face and didn't stop. The leopard fled, bleeding and terrified, and never came back to that territory. Your badger chased off a leopard, Robert said slowly. And leopards are what, 200 pounds? That one was about 180. Biscuit is maybe 25 pounds. Danny saw understanding starting to dawn on their faces. He doesn't fight to win on points. He fights until the other thing runs away or dies. And he's got really thick skin that teeth and claws can't cut through easily. My mom said it's one of the reasons they can take on venomous snakes. The fangs can't penetrate deep enough. So you want to release this animal in an enclosed spaceship, Robert said. With us on that same spaceship. Biscuit knows me. He won't hurt me, and he probably won't hurt anyone near me. But the aliens. They grabbed him, stunned him, and locked him up. He'll remember that. Yuki had gone pale. Danny, this sounds very dangerous. It is dangerous. That's the point. The Kroloth took us because they think Earth creatures are easy to handle. We need to show them they're wrong. That evening, the ship shuddered more than usual during the power cycle. Lights flickered and went dark for almost 3 seconds before coming back online. Robert was ready. His hand hit the override at exactly the right moment, and the cell door slid open 6 inches before engaging again. It was enough. They slipped through one at a time. Robert first, then Priya, then Danny. Yuki came last, and Danny's parents were awake now, whispering urgent warnings that came too late. The 4 escapees were already in the corridor, pressing against the wall as a patrol passed at the far intersection. We should go back, Yuki whispered. This is crazy. Too late now, Priya said. We either move forward or wait here to get caught. They moved forward. The corridor was dimly lit, with strange symbols on the walls that probably indicated different sections. Priya led them according to her mental map, taking 2 turns and dropping flat when they heard footsteps approaching. A single Kroloth guard walked past, not looking down, and they held their breath until it was gone. The exotic animal hold had a large door marked with symbols Danny guessed meant danger or caution. Through a small window, he could see row after row of containment units, each holding creatures from different worlds. Some glowed. Some moved in unsettling ways. And in a unit near the back, sitting perfectly still, was Biscuit. There, Danny pressed his finger to the window. That's him. Robert tried the door, locked. He examined the mechanism, then shook his head. This is more complex than the cell. I'll need time. They didn't have time. Lights began flashing further down the corridor. Yellow pulses that probably meant the alarm had been triggered. Voices clicked and clattered in the distance, multiple guards responding. Work faster, Priya urged, watching the corridor behind them. Robert's hands moved frantically over the lock panel. Sweat dripped down his face. The voices grew louder. Then something clicked and the door slid open. They rushed inside and the door sealed behind them. The exotic hold was larger than it looked from outside. Containment units lined both walls, stacked 3 high. Strange sounds came from various creatures, and Danny tried not to look too closely at the things behind the transparent walls. He ran to Biscuit's unit. The honey badger's eyes tracked his approach, but otherwise Biscuit didn't move. Just sat there calm and still, like he was meditating. Danny found the manual release on the unit and grabbed it with both hands. Danny, wait, Yuki said. Maybe we should think about this. The door to the hold exploded open behind them, and Krolath guards poured in with weapons raised. Danny pulled the release. Biscuit's containment unit clicked open and everything changed. Biscuit stepped out of the containment unit and immediately moved to Danny's side, positioning himself between the boy and the guards. The honey badger's movements were fluid and controlled, nothing like the frantic scrambling of a panicked animal. He simply stood there, low to the ground, and watched the Krolath with dark eyes that seemed to calculate distances and angles. The guards were laughing. At least that's what the clicking and chittering sound seemed to convey. 5 of them spread out in a semicircle, weapons held loosely, moving forward with the confidence of people who dealt with dangerous animals every day. One of them made a gesture at Biscuit that looked dismissive. They think he's harmless, Priya whispered, translating the clicking sounds. They're saying the small predator is docile, non-threatening. The lead guard, the largest Krolath in the group, reached toward Danny with one clawed hand. Its 4 eyes focused on the boy, probably planning to stun him first and then recapture the rest. The guard was 3 steps away when Biscuit made a sound. It wasn't loud, just a quiet scratching noise like nails dragging slowly across stone. The honey badger's claws scraped against the metal floor in a deliberate rhythm, and the sound carried through the exotic hold with perfect clarity. Every Krolath guard froze mid-step. The lead guard's hand stopped in mid-reach. Its scales, which had been a neutral gray, suddenly shifted to a pale, almost white color. The other guards experienced the same transformation, their bodies going rigid and their scales losing pigmentation like blood draining from a face. One of the guards in the back made a high-pitched clicking sound that could only be described as terrified. It took a step backward, then another. "Nobody move," said a different guard, its voice translator crackling to life for the first time since they'd entered the hold. The words came out in English, heavily accented but understandable. "Nobody move at all." Priya grabbed Danny's shoulder, confused by the sudden shift in atmosphere. The guards had gone from predatory confidence to frozen terror in the space of a heartbeat, and all because of a sound that barely qualified as a sound. Robert and Yuki pressed back against the containment units, sensing the danger even if they didn't understand it. The guard who had spoken clicked urgently at the others. Danny caught the word for retreat in its speech, recognized from Priya's earlier translations. But the lead guard clicked back, angry and insistent. An argument broke out among the Krolath, their scales flickering between pale fear and darker shades of determination. Biscuit made the scratching sound again, slightly louder this time. Both of his front paws scraped across the floor in unison, creating a noise that made Danny's own spine prickle with instinctive warning. The honey badger had never made this exact sound back on Earth, but Danny recognized the posture that accompanied it. This was a threat display. All argument among the guards ceased immediately. Even the lead guard's scales went pale again. A new Krolath entered the hold, this one wearing more elaborate armor with symbols that suggested rank. It took one look at the scene and went completely still. Its scales didn't just go pale, they went translucent, showing the darker flesh beneath. When it spoke, its voice was barely above a whisper. "That's a honey badger." The translator rendered the words in flat, Emotionless English, but the terror in the alien's posture needed no translation. A honey badger from Earth. It's small, the lead guard said, but its voice lacked conviction now. The database said they were small. The database also says they're red tier, the newcomer replied. Its 4 eyes never left Biscuit. How did you classify this as a safe capture? It was sedated easily. It's been calm since waking. We thought it was juvenile or domesticated. You thought wrong. The ranking Krolath scales continued to pulse between translucent and pale white. I've seen the reports from the survey teams. 3 dead, 5 injured badly enough to require medical evacuation, and that was from 1 honey badger defending a burrow. The humans exchanged glances. Danny felt Priya's grip on his shoulder tighten. Robert mouthed the word 3 and looked at Biscuit with new understanding. They're not tameable, the ranking guard continued. The database is very clear. Approach with extreme caution or not at all. Recommended response to aggression is full retreat. Do not engage. Do not attempt capture. Do not assume sedation will work a second time. Biscuit scratched the floor again. This time he added a low rumbling sound from his chest, something between a growl and a purr, but far more threatening than either. The honey badger's lips pulled back slightly, showing teeth designed for crushing bone and tearing through tough hide. The lead guard took a step backward despite itself. What's its threat range? One of the other guards asked, its weapon now pointed at the floor instead of at the humans. Unknown. The database suggests honey badgers don't recognize threat displays from other species. They don't retreat. They don't show fear, and they don't stop attacking until the threat is eliminated or they're dead. Even injured, they continue fighting. So what do we do? The lead guard's voice had lost all its earlier confidence. The ranking Krolath was quiet for a long moment, its eyes fixed on where Biscuit stood calmly beside Danny. The honey badger hadn't moved from his position, hadn't advanced or shown any sign of actual aggression beyond the scratching sound, but that sound had been enough to reduce 5 trained guards and their superior to frozen statues. We wait, the ranking guard finally said. We wait and hope the human can control it. Because if that creature decides to attack, stunning weapons won't stop it fast enough. And in this enclosed space, it could kill or maim half of us before we could bring enough force to take it down. If we even could take it down. Danny felt all eyes turn to him. The guards stared with their 4-eyed gazes, desperate and terrified. His fellow humans looked at him with confusion and growing hope. And Biscuit just sat there at his feet, making that quiet scratching sound again, waiting to see what would happen next. The silence stretched out for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Danny kept his hand near Biscuit's head without actually touching him, understanding instinctively that any sudden movement might trigger something none of them could control. The honey badger continued his quiet scratching, a metronome of menace that kept every Krolath in the room frozen. Explain the database entry, the lead guard finally said to the ranking officer. Why is this creature red tier? The ranking Krolath clicked nervously before its translator engaged. 18 months ago, a survey team landed on Earth for specimen collection. Standard procedure. They identified several promising creatures and set up capture equipment in a region called the Kalahari. One team member noticed a burrow and investigated. And? The lead guard's scales were still pale, but curiosity had begun to override fear. The honey badger inside the burrow attacked. Initial reports suggested it was protecting young, though this was never confirmed. First team member was bitten through his armor on the leg. Venom in the badger's saliva, though not produced by the badger itself, came from previous snake consumption. Team member went into shock. Danny felt Priya's fingers dig into his shoulder. Robert had gone very still. Second and third team members attempted extraction. The honey badger engaged them both simultaneously. It targeted facial areas and joints in armor. Both were hospitalized. Fourth and fifth team members used stunning weapons at close range. Multiple shots. The creature was hit at least 6 times with charges that should have incapacitated it for hours. But it didn't stop, the lead guard said quietly. It did not. It continued attacking until team members retreated to their shuttle. They attempted to stun it from range as they departed. The honey badger survived all charges and was observed returning to its burrow. Later surveillance showed it moving normally within 2 hours, no apparent lasting damage. The exotic hold had gone absolutely quiet except for Biscuit's periodic scratching. Even the other contained creatures seemed to sense the tension and had stopped making sounds. The database was updated immediately, the ranking officer continued. Honey badgers were classified red tier with a warning. They are resistant to stunning weapons, resistant to most venom, resistant to injury that would kill creatures 3 times their size. Their hide is tough enough to resist bites from Earth's large predators. They have been observed fighting lions, hyenas, and other apex predators and surviving the encounters. But it's so small, one of the younger guards said, its voice weak. Size is irrelevant. The database includes visual records. We have footage of honey badgers breaking through fencing, digging under walls, climbing over obstacles, and opening simple locks. They are capable of problem solving. They don't give up. And most critically, they do not recognize submission behaviors from other species. If you run, they may chase. If you fight, they will fight harder. If you surrender, they see prey. A different guard spoke up. What about the human? It's staying near the human child. That suggests bonding behavior. Possible, the ranking officer acknowledged. Earth databases indicate humans do form relationships with various predator species. They domesticated canines. They cohabitate with felines. Some even keep reptilian predators as companions. But domestication and tameness are not the same thing. A human-raised honey badger is still a honey badger. Danny decided it was time to speak. His name is Biscuit. I raised him from when he was a baby. He's my friend. Every eye in the room focused on him. The guard's scales flickered through several colors Danny had no reference for. The ranking officer's translator clicked several times before engaging. You have a bond with this creature? Yes, he sleeps in my room. He follows me around. He's part of my family. And you believe you can control it? Danny considered the question carefully. I don't control Biscuit. Nobody controls a honey badger. But he trusts me and I understand him. Right now he's scared because you took him away from home and locked him in a box. He's making that sound because he's warning you to stay back. What happens if we don't stay back? He'll attack! And he won't stop until he thinks the threat is gone or until he's dead. Probably the first thing because Biscuit is really hard to kill. The lead guard's scales had begun to darken slightly, shame or anger coloring its reaction. We are 6 trained soldiers with advanced weapons. Surely we can handle one small predator. You saw the database, the ranking officer snapped. You want to test those odds in an enclosed space with valuable specimens all around us? If we start shooting, we might kill the humans. We might damage other containment units, and we still might not stop the honey badger before it kills several of us. Another crew member entered the hold, this one wearing different armor that suggested a different role. Captain Vralik wants a status report. The bridge is demanding to know why the exotic hold is in lockdown. Tell the captain we have a situation, the ranking officer said. Tell him we accidentally captured a red-tier Earth predator, and it's currently loose with its human handler. The messenger's scales went white. A red tier? Here? How? Incompetence and arrogance, the ranking officer said, glaring at the lead guard. The standard combination. Danny felt Biscuit shift slightly against his leg. The honey badger was getting restless, which meant the standoff couldn't last much longer. He needed to make his move before Biscuit decided to make his. I want to make a deal, Danny said loudly. The guards all stared at him. You let all the humans go. You take us back to Earth and I'll keep Biscuit calm. That's absurd, the lead guard said. We can't just release valuable cargo because a child makes demands. Danny knelt down and placed his hand on Biscuit's head. The honey badger stopped scratching and looked up at him. For a moment there was complete silence in the exotic hold. Then Danny looked at the guards and said simply, I can stop petting him anytime I want. Every Kroloth in the room went completely white. Captain Vralik arrived in the exotic hold 10 minutes later, flanked by 4 more guards who went pale the moment they saw Biscuit. The captain was larger than the other Kroloth, with darker scales and elaborate armor that marked him as someone important. He surveyed the scene with all 4 eyes, taking in the frozen guards, the escaped humans, and the small Earth creature that had caused all this chaos. This is the red-tier predator? Vralik clicked, his translator rendering the question in English for the humans' benefit. Yes, Captain, the ranking officer replied. A honey badger. The child is its handler and has offered terms. Terms. Vralik's scales darkened with what might have been amusement or anger. A human child is offering us terms on my ship. Danny kept his hand on Biscuit's head, feeling the honey badger's muscles tense beneath thick fur and skin. Return all the humans to Earth, let us go. Or I take my hand away and see what happens. You would release a dangerous predator on a ship where you and your people are trapped? Vralik moved closer. though he stopped well outside of what he probably considered the honey badger's attack range. That seems unwise? Maybe, Danny agreed. But Biscuit knows me. He'll avoid me and the people near me. Your crew, though? He doesn't know them. And he's probably pretty angry about being stunned and locked in a box. One of Vralik's officers clicked urgently and stepped forward. Captain, I recommend accepting the terms. I've accessed the full database entry on this species. There are video records. I can show you. Vralik gestured impatiently, and the officer activated a holographic display from his armor. Footage appeared in the air above them, showing a honey badger in the African bush. Danny recognized the video. His mom had shown him the same one during his education about Biscuit species. The video showed a honey badger attacking a puff adder, one of Africa's deadliest snakes. The snake struck multiple times, its fangs sinking into the badger's face. The honey badger ate the snake anyway, then stumbled around for 10 minutes before collapsing. The timestamp in the corner showed it unconscious for 2 hours. Then it woke up and continued eating the snake. Immune to venom that would kill most creatures, the officer narrated. This is common behavior for the species. Another video played showing a different honey badger being struck by a lioness. The big cat's claws raked across the badger's back with no visible damage. The honey badger turned and bit the lion's paw. The lioness retreated. Skin too thick for claws or teeth to penetrate effectively, the officer continued. They've evolved to survive encounters with Africa's apex predators. A third video showed a honey badger breaking into a research camp, ripping through a wooden wall, climbing over a fence, and opening a latched box to get at food inside. The creature showed problem-solving abilities that seemed impossible for something with such a small brain. Intelligence comparable to some primates. Tool use observed in captive specimens. They learn from mistakes and adapt quickly. The final video made several of the guards step backward despite being recordings. It showed a honey badger fighting 3 wild dogs simultaneously, targeting their faces and throats with precision strikes. The dogs retreated, bleeding and terrified, leaving the honey badger victorious despite being outnumbered and outweighed. They do not retreat. They do not surrender. They fight until the threat is eliminated or they are dead. Stunning weapons have limited effectiveness. Physical trauma that would kill other creatures of similar size often fails to stop them. Vralik watched the videos in silence. His scales shifted through several colors before settling on a pale gray that suggested he was reconsidering his position. How long to return to Earth? Vralik asked quietly. 3 days at current speed, Captain, one of his officers replied. And if we refuse the child's terms? The ranking officer from earlier spoke up. In my professional opinion, Captain, we would lose multiple crew members before subduing the creature. Possibly more if it decides to target critical ship systems instead of personnel. The database notes they are capable of learning vulnerabilities and exploiting them. It's a small animal, Vralik said, but his voice lacked conviction. So are the Krethian plague rats, Captain, and we avoid their planets entirely. Vralik was quiet for a long moment. Danny could feel Biscuit's patience wearing thin. The honey badger had been still for too long, and his muscles were bunching in ways that suggested he was about to move regardless of what the humans decided. Danny, Priya whispered, I think you should pet him more. He's tensing up. Danny scratched behind Biscuit's ears and the honey badger relaxed slightly. The gesture was not lost on the Krolath guards, several of whom clicked nervously at the reminder that the child's continued cooperation was all that stood between them and violence. Set course for Earth, Vralik finally said. Return the humans to their point of capture. All of them. And someone explained to me how we failed to properly identify a red-tier predator. The lead guard's scales went dark with shame. The initial scan showed it was small and the human child was carrying it. We assumed it was domesticated. Earth creatures don't domesticate the way other species do, the ranking officer said. Humans form bonds with predators. They coexist with danger. It's part of what makes them so unusual. The journey back to Earth took 3 days, just as predicted. During that time, the Krolath gave the humans full access to the ship, too afraid to risk antagonizing Biscuit's handler. Danny stayed in one of the empty crew quarters with Biscuit, while Priya, Robert, and Yuki explored carefully and gathered what information they could about the aliens and their technology. Other Krolath crew members began researching Earth more thoroughly, accessing databases that contained information about the planet's wildlife. The more they learned, the more frightened they became. Hippos that killed more humans than any other large animal, orcas that hunted in coordinated packs, polar bears that could smell prey from miles away, Cape buffalo that charged vehicles, and hundreds of other species that had evolved on a planet that seemed designed to produce highly efficient killers. "Your world is a death world," one young Kroloth said to Danny on the second day. "How do you survive there?" Danny shrugged, scratching Biscuit's belly while the honey badger sprawled contentedly across his lap. "You just have to understand the animals. Respect them. Biscuit's dangerous if you threaten him, but he's family if you treat him right. You form emotional bonds with apex predators and see nothing unusual about this," the Kroloth said, more statement than question. "I guess so," Danny replied. The ship landed at the conservation center exactly where it had taken off. Danny's parents hugged him tight enough to hurt, and Biscuit wandered off to investigate whether his favorite termite mound was still intact. The Kroloth departed within minutes, refusing even the offer of compensation or negotiation. 2 weeks later, Danny's mom showed him an update to the Galactic database. Earth had been added to the Kroloth's forbidden planet list. The reason given made Danny laugh. Dominant species forms emotional bonds with apex predators and appears unaware this is abnormal. Approach with extreme caution. Do not engage. Do not attempt specimen collection. Do not underestimate Earth fauna regardless of size. Biscuit, unaware of his new status as a galactic terror, was busy digging under the fence again, probably looking for honey. Danny decided not to stop him this time.